Hey guys, and welcome to the Burn In model. We are going to be sharing with you everything that is Burn In. We're going to be sharing with you the origin stories, how we started, what the Burn In model is, and how you can use it in your life and in your practice. So I'm Rhiannon Crisp. I'm an occupational therapist based in Australia, and we've got Michelle Lucan, who's the co-creator of the Burn In model, who's joining us from Baltimore in the US. So, a little bit of background about us. I am an occupational therapist. As I said, I've been an OT for over 16 years now, and I have my own private pediatric practice here in New South Wales, Australia, where I meet families in the context of their everyday life at home, in the communities where life actually happens, and support them to meet their occupational goals and needs. I'm also the founder of the OT lifestyle movement. So in 2020, I started this movement, and it was to really support occupational therapists to align with their passions and their purpose within the profession of OT and to do work that mattered. I created a film called Finding Me in OT. And I have got a podcast called the OT Lifestyle Movement. I am the editor of a beautiful collation of stories that I've created into an ebook called the OT Collective, sharing how occupational therapists are working in different spaces and places and areas and passion areas all over the world. All these resources are free over on the OT lifestylemovement.com. And Michelle, welcome.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Michelle Lucan. I'm also an occupational therapist, and I'm based in on the East Coast of the United States, not too far from Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, Maryland. I have been in the occupational therapy profession for 17 years, and 10 of those years I was serving as an OT in the U.S. Army. And so I just finished up my service a couple of years ago, and now I am still serving the Army, specifically the mental health of the warfighter, through writing curriculum and doing program evaluation and research around suicide prevention and mental performance and well-being. So I also have a budding online community and blog specific to working with highly sensitive individuals, highly sensitive persons who are working in high stakes fields. That is called Canary and Willow, and you can find some blog posts and resources over there on that website. We should also mention here that our website, as our joint venture for the home of the burn-in model, is called www.burninnotout.com. Okay, so kind of the bottom line up front here, if you're new to the burn-in model, um, our a little bit of our backstory we'll go through here, and then we will get spend most of the time talking about the model itself, the flame, and all of the elements that make up the model. So the burn-in model is a metaphor-based, ever-evolving model of occupational therapy. It originated as a grassroots call from Rhiannon to the OT community, and started out as an 8-week group collaboration with OTs across the world, kind of coming together and discussing what this concept of burn in might look like, feel like, and present like in our occupational therapy profession. So it was always intended to be dynamic and inclusive, with real world application, both for the occupational therapist personally and maybe for their clients. So we developed the burn-in model originally again to support occupational therapy professionals who were facing burnout and misalignment, and quickly came to realize that it could help so many more people. So we'll talk a little bit about that soon. We should also mention that it's been shaped by lived experience of all of these OTs across the world who have walked through burnout and come out on the other side, or maybe still be struggling with it. And we've also had lots of inspiration from other foundational occupational therapy models, and you'll see some glimmers and flavors of those as we go through the model. While it was shaped by our lived experience and our perspectives, the perspectives of our clients that we've brought with us along the way, we also validated this model through two literature reviews. We looked up the research studies pertaining to factors contributing to burnout and job satisfaction. So, kind of the positive and the negative experiences of OTs in the profession over the last 10 years. And we mapped those factors that were found to impact burnout and job satisfaction. We mapped those factors to our model elements to kind of validate and make sure that we were capturing all of the different things that could impact OT's burnout in the model. Then we refined it over 10 months, the past 10 months, with feedback again from more OTs from across the world. And here we are now.
Here we are. So this is just a little visual timeline, I guess. I'm very visual and I love to see it in pictures. So the the burn-in model really started from a post that I put out on social media exactly 12 months ago. So it's been about a year. And I'd been out on the water, on the ocean, in a boat with my family, having a glorious day, watching whales do backflips. It was magical. The sun was kissing my skin, even though I was rugged up because it was still freezing outside. And I just had this feeling of this sense of aliveness, and I was energized and just feeling so present. I got home, it was Sunday evening, knowing that I had so much to do. I had the school lunches to pack, I had to get the kids' school clothes ready for the next day. I was prepping dinner, I was tidying up, I was doing some business admin before the week ahead. And later that night, I sat down on the couch, had a flick through Facebook, and I saw there was yet another post from an occupational therapist who was saying how burnt out they were, that they were ready to quit the profession, that they wanted to start at a local cafe because that would be easier and stress-free. And this wasn't the first time I've seen a post like this. There's been so much talk in occupational therapy about giving up and walking away, of feeling disillusioned, of feeling misaligned, and not doing that meaningful work anymore. And so I wrote this post, and it said, to avoid burning out, burn in, ignite your inner spark, refuel your spirit, rejuvenate your soul. This is for this is it. This is life. Let's live it one occupation at a time. And I put that out there into the universe, and I started getting lots of comments and DMs saying, oh my gosh, this concept of burn in, what does it mean? Can I use it? I love it. And people wanted to start using it. I hadn't really thought of it much prior to then. I'd never thought of it. It literally came through me. It was not ChatGPT generated or anything. It was just coming from this most magical place of having the best day and then getting hit with the reality of, okay, we've got to go to work the next day. And some people's reality isn't so pretty, and it's more challenging and it's stressful, and people are experiencing real burnout. And so from there, anyway, I decided that there's something to this. There is something special about this concept of burning in. What does it mean? What does it look like? I already knew what it felt like. It was this feeling of aliveness. And so from there, like Michelle said, we ran an 8 week what do we call it? It wasn't a focus group. It was just a community of OTs who would come together and provide feedback and suggestions on how to create this burn-in model to support occupational therapists to live in alignment, and to do meaningful work. And it became much bigger than that. We held focus groups, where we got feedback on the model. We can go to the next slide. And over 10 months, Michelle and I have been in constant communication. Every morning I wake up with a million text messages and voice notes from Michelle. And it's just been the wildest journey. It's been amazing and beautiful and crazy. You can see in the cheeky screenshot that I took on the right side there, Michelle is swaddling baby Piglet to give back to her beautiful daughter. In the midst of creating this revolutionary model that we were. Uh, and it's all to say that the burn-in model has originated and has come from two occupational therapists who are also mums, who also have so many other roles, that we play and live. And we didn't create the burn-in model in a university. We didn't create it in this real structured, sterile environment. It has been created in the messiness and the realness of everyday life. And here we are, with so much insight and so much more, just so much more validation from the occupational therapists who have joined us on this journey, and their willingness and courage to share their own stories of burnout and misalignment. And we think we've created something really special, and we've created something that we're both really proud of.
Absolutely. And so, with that said, while Rhiannon started out picturing this model, at least at first, specifically for occupational therapists who were burning out, we have really come to realize how broad and far-reaching this model could be in terms of who it might help. So, of course, people, including OTs, who are burned out or heading in that direction, but also people who are doing all right. They're kind of just going with the flow, maybe um, seeing where the day takes them and kind of doing what they need to do, but they might know that there's more to life, that there's potential that they could step into. Maybe they want to take a knee and reassess what they're doing and who they're doing it with and all of these things. So there's really this kind of continuum of ways that it can be applied. Of course, occupational therapists, helping professionals, coaches, other types of therapists. This model is very much grounded in occupational therapy, and it has potential to be used by a lot of different types of professionals who are helping people. And then finally, we are super excited to hopefully soon start moving into the groups, teams, communities, and organizations workspace and really bringing this framework and terminology to where people work and live most of their day, not always at home. So lots of possibilities there. With that said, we are offering, at the time of recording, we are offering this All in Alignment journey. It's a 6-week course that involves live weekly group calls with other people who are interested in diving deep into the burn-in model, applying it to themselves personally so that they can live it before they lead it, maybe with their clients. or their students or their supervisees. So we will talk more on this at the end, but here is that link and QR code if you wanted to check it out now.
Excellent. So, when we started looking at burn in, the concept of burn in, and what burn in actually meant, we realized we really needed to define what burnout meant. So, if we look at the WHO definition, the World Health Organization defines burnout as a result of chronic workplace stress. Okay. But what we realized was that this was a very limited and narrow view. And what we were seeing is that um, burnout can actually happen in so many different roles that we have in our life. We understand and acknowledge autistic burnout. There's burnout from caregiving. There's burnout from parenting, activism roles in education systems. So this could be if you're a student, if you're a teacher. Obviously, systemic injustice can play a very big role in burnout. And so we started to reframe and relook at this concept of burnout to be much bigger than chronic workplace stress that's confined to a workplace. Um, so we define burnout as a result of misalignment between who you are, what you do, and who and what you're connected to. So if we look at the who you are, this is your being. This is your identity, your values, and your purpose. The what you do, this is your doing. So this is your roles, your routines, your responsibilities, your occupations that you engage in. So the activities that you're doing in day-to-day life. And then we've got who and what you're connected to. So this is your sense of belonging. This is the relationships that you have in your life, the communities that you're connected to, the environments that you live, work, and play in. And when there's a misalignment between these three things, between your doing, your being, and your belonging, then we can have this burnout. And burnout is it's seen as this chronic, severe state of misalignment between these three things. So to burn in is the opposite of burnout. So it's quite simple. It's basically the alignment between who you are, what you do, and who and what you're connected to. So it's the same. It's the same. It's just the opposite of burnout. Okay, let's talk about the flame. So the burn-in model is based on a metaphor, as Michelle said earlier, and the flame is the core. It is the heart of this metaphor. The flame is the alignment. So if we have a look at the flame, you can already see visually what I just spoke about. We've got the doing, the being, the belonging, and this forms part of our inner flame. So when there is alignment between these three things, the doing, the being, and the belonging, there is more potential for your becoming. And the becoming is the outer flame. This encapsulates the intersection, the inner flame, the doing, the being, and belonging. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I think you can sort of look at the image and understand what it is. And what's important to note here is that the doing, the being, and the belonging, they're all interconnected. Okay, so there's always that interconnected part of those. Now, with our flame can look different at different times in our life, at different times of the day, of the week, the month, the year, the season. It is dynamic. It's not static, and it changes based on this alignment. So we don't actually have the image of the doing, the being, the belonging in this flame, but it is there. We've just, for simplicity reasons, just put a picture of a flame. But the greater the alignment between the doing, the being, the belonging, the the bigger the flame, the bigger you're burning in, the bigger, the brighter, the more expansive this flame is. The less of the alignment between your doing, your being, and your belonging, the smaller the flame. So we can see the flame on the left-hand side. It's small, it's dimming, it's might be flickering. So there's less alignment there. So yeah, the size and the strength of the flame represents the strength of one's alignment between their being, their doing, their belonging. Okay, so burning in versus burnout. You might now have in your mind a bit of a clearer picture what this looks like, and this is the visual image that represents that. So we've got on the left-hand side, we've got burning in. This is when our flame is big and bright and it's blazing. It might be a wild, raging bonfire. We've got these embers that are flicking off your fire, and we're going to go into each of the elements in a moment. Then we have a flame that's burning out. This is the flame that's dimming, that's flickering, that's maybe barely there. And it's got some smoke. So smoke is a signal of burnout, and we're going to go into that in a moment. And then we have burnout. So this is represented by coal. We've got lots of smoke, thick, heavy, dark smoke that's signaling burnout. And in between, there's all different stages in between here. There's lots of nuance. And this is something that if you were using the model on yourself, you are going to identify how your flame is. If you're using it as a therapist and a client is using it, they're going to draw their own flame or their coal, depending on where they feel this alignment or misalignment is happening in their life. So it is very much based on the story and the narrative of the person using the model. There is no right or wrong. It is very individualized to the person that is using the model. It is their model. Yeah. Okay. So this is what burning can look like and what it can feel like. And again, there is no right or wrong. These are just some examples of what we've used for this PowerPoint presentation. So burn-in can feel like being alive. And this is certainly if I flash back to that moment on the boat where I'm watching the whales and I'm with my family and I'm present and we're laughing and life feels beautiful and enriched. I'd say I was alive. That was the feeling. You might feel passionate, you might feel engaged, centered, authentic, connected, fired up. We have a whole literacy around burn-in because we use these fire-related terms and terminology all the time throughout our day-to-day lives, and we barely even notice it. But this feeling of being fired up, this is what burning in can feel like. And it can look like a lot of different things. It can look like autonomy, like choice and control in your life. It can look like independence. It can look like interdependence, social connection, participation in meaningful occupations, health and well-being, life balance, growth, self-actualization. So if I was to think of a time when I'm burning in, I think the best example at the moment is creating this model. I wake up every morning fired up, lit up, I have this burning desire to get up and embrace the day and see what text messages Michelle has sent me so I can start creating, because one of my core values is creativity. So if I look at the being part of my flame, creativity is a core value. So when I'm doing work on the burn-in model, I'm ticking that box. If I look at the doing, I'm constantly, when I'm creating this model, generating ideas. I'm dreaming big. I'm in and out of creation mode, developing the model. So big tick for doing. And then I've got the belonging part. So I'm in constant communication with Michelle. We have become like soul sisters. We're so much more than OT colleagues. It's energizing, and even the community around the burn-in model, like the occupational therapists who have taken to it and embraced it, that share the same vision that Michelle and I share for this model. It is beautiful. So a big tick for belonging. So my being, my doing, and my belonging, they're all aligned. So I have the capacity and the ability to burn in and burn bright. And I feel alive and life feels beautiful. So this is a little reflective activity that we wanted to guide you through. Um, if we have a look at the flame scale on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is this raging bonfire and 5 is smoldering coal and the flame's no longer there, where are you feeling today? How is your flame today? And this is such a better question for therapists, for occupational therapists who are listening right now. It's such a better question to ask, how's your flame today? Rather than the generic question we ask is, how are you today? How are you? Because most people reply on autopilot. Most people give a very superficial, not true response and will say, I'm good. Like, yeah, I'm good, or not bad, but we're not getting a really accurate response. But when we ask, how's your flame today? You actually have to think about it. Like, like, how is my flame today? And we have this opportunity to give a meaningful response. My flame's burning bright. I'm on fire today. Like, how, or my flame's dimming. I'm not burning bright. Um, So we want to ask you, where is your flame today? Have a little think about it. And it's something that's just for you to check in for yourself where you're at. And it's to bring this awareness to know that this is where you're at right now. But there's hope, there's potential, and there's possibility for you to move from where you are now to where you want to be. And this is the journey, right? This is the journey.
All right, so pause this video here if you want or need to take some more time to reflect on your flame. And now we will go ahead into the ecosystem, which involves 8 elements, with the flame or the fire being at the core. So you have your flame, and then you have these 8 elements surrounding it. We have categorized these 8 into 3 different buckets. So we have our core elements as our spark, coal, and ash, our fuel and conditions. So these are the elements that are impacting our flame the most on a daily basis. So we have our sticks and logs, which is like our fuel, our rocks, which are our boundaries, part of our conditions, and then the wind and rain as our environmental conditions. And then we have our ripple effect elements, embers and smoke, and we will get into those shortly. Okay, so this is the easiest element to remember. Life, a spark is representative of life itself. That's it. You're alive, you have a spark, there is potential, and there is hope. Coal, charred coal, represents a state of burnout. And again, we define this as severe and chronic misalignment between who you are, what you do, and who and what you're connected to. And so, one thing that we do not have pictured here is that even when you are in a state of burnout, your spark always remains. I think Rhiannon mentioned it earlier. So where there is life, there is still this little spark, a little ember at the base of your pile of charred coal that represents the potential to find that alignment again, given the right conditions and the right fuel. So, burnout or misalignment can feel and look a lot of different ways. Um, we've talked to a lot of OTs over the year and have heard a lot of different descriptors around that state of burnout. So, for some people, it might look like emotional exhaustion, um, kind of feeling empty or lost, disconnected, disengaged. For other people, it might look like they've been just running on, empty for so long, doing everything for everyone else, and not for themselves, and they don't even know who they are anymore. They don't know how to find that alignment just yet. So those are some examples there of coal. Ash in this model represents the end of life, and more specifically, the legacy that we leave behind. So, our wisdom, our values, our lessons, mentorship, stories that we've imparted on others. And then it can also look like tangible objects, items, property, land that's left behind. We also include in our ash the lineage. So this could be our ancestral memory, what we have inherited from our ancestors and our parents and so on. Could be intergenerational trauma. Um, and we picture this from a, kind of a literal fire sense that, this ash is present before your fire is started with the spark of life. And then again, once that spark dies, then we have the ash that mixes in, your legacy and your what you've left behind is now mixed in with the ash of those who came before you. And so this just really kind of complex as life is depiction of the end of life and what carries on. One note about this is that this is a really important element to the model because when you're applying it to either yourself or a client, asking this question, if they're open to it, to really kind of zooming out from the day to day that they might be stuck in and thinking and reflecting on, what is the legacy that I want to leave behind? What matters to me most at the end of the day? And then working backwards from there, what can we do to um, get you closer to being or becoming that version of yourself? Okay, so now we are moving into our fuel and conditions elements. The sticks and the logs, this is a big category here of kind of the fuel, the things that can help fan, flame, and yeah, flame, fan the flames and protect our flame. So these are our personal factors and our occupational factors. You can think of your personal factors as kind of like your being. So who you are naturally, innately, at the core of your authenticity. So your personality, your attitude, your physical health, mental well-being can also be your skills and your strengths, as well as your weaknesses or the areas that you want to improve upon. There's a lot of these are just a kind of a couple of examples of the personal factors. Notice how they can be either they might be either supportive or unsupportive of your flame or your alignment. Then we have your occupational factors, which are the occupations, the activities that you engage in throughout the day or week or month, your habits, routines, roles. What are you doing on a daily basis? And are those things supportive of your alignment? Are they matching up well with your strengths and the skills that you bring to the table? Um, and so when you think about like from a fire standpoint, we think about our supportive personal and occupational factors as being like a big, dry, flammable log or stick that can just, fuel your flame, bring, you know, life into your flame. So that might be like a very meaningful occupation that you get to do every so often, like your favorite hobby. And once you start engaging in that, the flame just goes goes up. Um, or if you're thinking about an unsupportive personal or occupational factor, we think of those as maybe your damp logs and sticks that are actually sucking the oxygen from your flame and causing that flame to dim down. And so an example of that might be, let's just say, not being able to participate in any enjoyable, meaningful occupations or hobbies, or maybe doing work on a daily basis that does not align with who you are and what you love. So you can take a second here and pause if you'd like to think about just maybe one or two examples of your personal factors and your occupational factors, what it is that you're doing and who you are in this moment that come to mind and maybe impacting your ability to align in a positive or less positive way, or maybe just a neutral way. Okay. Next, we have our rocks, and these represent our boundaries. So, when in certain parts of the world, when you build your fire, and you want to protect it, you set up, a barrier of rocks or something around it in order to prevent the wind from coming in and snuffing out or blowing out the base of the flame. And so we see these rocks as our boundaries that can come in a lot of different shapes and forms. We can have our time boundaries around how long we're willing to stay at work. Can be emotional boundaries. Perhaps there's a particular person in your life that you find it difficult to stay emotionally regulated around. So you're setting some boundaries there, or perhaps you haven't been able to set those boundaries yet. So, from a fire standpoint, we see these rocks, if you have these big, you know, close together rocks that form a barrier of protection around the flame, then those are probably healthy supportive boundaries. If you're lacking the boundaries, perhaps, you don't have so much protection around your flame. For our last fuel and conditions element, we have our wind and rain, or any kind of environmental factor, weather-related environmental factor. There are a lot of different environmental factors that can, of course, impact our flame and our ability to align. So just our relationships with the people that we live with and work with and play with, our social and economic systems and supports. If, there's a lot going on in the world right now at the time of this recording. And so some OTs have talked about how changes in the social political landscape have really caused, a dimming of their flame. We have our culture and values of the group or the society that we live in, maybe our family, our built up environment, our physical environment, technology, the nature surrounding us. And so, uh, again, from a very literal standpoint, we know that wind and rain in different uh, intensities can help or put out a fire. So a gentle breeze, providing that oxygen that a fire needs to stay lit and to get bigger. That's great. That would be our supportive environmental factors. And then our rain can be a drizzle or a downpour or a hurricane or a monsoon. And those would be representative of our unsupportive environmental factors that don't align with who we are and what we do. Finally, we have our ripple effects elements. And so our embers can be seen as our gifts to the world, our contributions, our impact beyond ourself, that impact others and maybe the environment around us. So this can be kind of the energy that we give off when we are burning in and we are feeling aligned and we are maybe even just leading by example and you're not really doing anything, but somebody is watching and noticing something that rubs off on them and then they start to burn in too or find get a little bit closer to alignment. So we love this element and we see it as just very empowering. Um, yeah. All right, our final element is our smoke. So these are your signs of burnout, your smoke signals, so to speak. And these are warning signs of possible or pending misalignment. And they might be noticeable by you. They might be more observable by others, depending on how much awareness you have of what it looks like when you start to burn out. Um, the smoke from a fire, right, usually comes off when the fire is starting to dim or there's some damp logs sucking the air from it. And so we can think of these as almost like an SOS, or distress call. And if we know, if we take a minute to check in and know what our smoke signals are and ask others who know us well, what does it look like when I'm starting to burn out or like seem a little bit off? What does that look like? And so having that awareness can be really helpful.
Excellent. Beautifully described there, Michelle.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's dive into the difference between burn in versus burnout. So we've got an image here of what burning in may look like. Remembering this is very unique and individual. It's based on the person who is drawing, writing, telling about their burn-in story, about their journey and where they are right now. But we've given this as a bit of an example. So we can see the flame is burning big and bright. We've got some sticks and logs on the fire, and we've got this beautiful circle of rocks that's surrounding the fire. So the rocks are representative of these healthy boundaries that someone has in place. And remember, this can be time boundaries, relationship boundaries, physical boundaries, any boundary that we put in our life. We can have big rocks, we can have small rocks, depending on the boundary that we have and how much impact it's having in terms of protecting our inner flame and our inner fire. We have sticks. We got lots of resources, sticks off to the side here. So we have access to participation in meaningful occupations. And we have this expression of our personal strengths. So when we put these, when we have meaningful occupations, when we're engaged and participating in the occupations that light us up, that fuel our fire, the fire is obviously going to burn bigger and brighter, right? We've got these beautiful embers that are coming off the fire, flicking off like you can imagine them lighting up the world around us. These are our gifts to the world that Michelle explained. And they can literally go off and flick off and drift in the wind to light someone else's fire. Someone else may be in a state of burnout, and it's your energy, your presence that is going to support them to find more alignment. And maybe this is through the belonging piece because you're part of their environment. It's the relationship that you have with them that's going to help them burn in once more. We've got the wind, so we've got some supportive environmental factors. You might be working in a beautiful workplace and space with supportive supervisors and great teammates. You might have a great home life. Your partner's supportive. And yeah, your flame is burning strong and bright. So it's very intuitive. We want this to be very intuitive. There's no right or wrong when we draw this out. It's very much a reflection of what you envisage burning in to look like for you or burnout to look like for you at any stage in your journey. So it's your model and you create it. So then we have burning out. So here again, this is an example of what burning out may look like. So it may look like this dim, flickering flame that's barely lit. It may have some smoke. We're sending out, this is our SOS, this is our distress signal, help, I'm heading towards burnout. I'm not there yet, but this is the signs. And the signs may be irritability. The signs may be not being able to cope. The signs may be crying in the car on the way to work. The signs may be not being able to get out of bed in the morning. So the signs look different for everyone. And it's about recognizing what's true to you and what your smoke signals are. And as Michelle said, it's not only important for you to recognize if you're using the model on yourself, it's not only important for the person who's using the model to recognize your own signs so that you can catch it early and that you can take steps towards burning in once more. But it's also important because at this stage in your journey, you may not have the capacity to support yourself, and you need the environment, you need the relationships to be more supportive, to support you to move from where you are now to where you want to be. We have the wind and the rain, so we've got some unsupportive environmental factors there. It might be a toxic workplace environment or some not so nice relationships that are in your life right now. It may be the physical environment might not be supportive of the occupations that you want to engage in. And so the flame there, yeah, it's poor, it's inconsistent. We've got a couple of rocks, but not many. They're small. They're not really protecting the flame, so it can easily go out with some heavy, strong winds. And so that's burning out. And then we've got burnout completely. So this is where there is no flame. You can see there's still the spark. So the spark means life. So there's still life there. And where there is life, there is hope, there is possibility. And we've got the coal. So the coal represents the burnout. And we've got the heavy, dark, thick smoke. The signs of burnout are very clear. Very clear. We're there. We are in burnout. We've got the dark, heavy rain clouds, torrential rain, unsupportive environmental factors, the big winds, one little rock there. So we can tell by this model, just by looking at it visually, there's the blurred or broken or missing boundaries that aren't in place. But we know that there's still potential because that coal, while like we don't want it to feel all doom and gloom, there is sparks, so there's life, and the coal itself can come back to life. It can burn once more. It can burn again when we give it the right conditions. And I think what's important to mention here when we're talking about this continuum and this the nuance between the burn in, the burning out, the burnt out is that the burn-in model is really empowering because it's not pathologizing you. It's not saying that you're broken. It's not saying that because you're cold, there's something wrong with you. It's actually really empowering because it invites us to look at the context. And this is very OT, right? It invites us to look at what's going on in the world around me, in my world. What's going on in the places that I'm working in my home environment? What's going on in my relationships? Where's this pressure coming from? What are the conditions? Where's maybe I've got a lack of fuel here. There's no fuel in this picture, fueling my fire. I don't have access to sticks and logs. I don't have access to the meaningful occupations to fuel my fire. So we take a step back from looking at burnout as there's a problem with you to there's something misaligned. And let's look at the context so we can support you to go from where you are now, whatever stage that is on your burning journey, to where you want to be.
Beautiful. And we are very much aware that one of those potentially major things that might be impacting the stage, both what your flame looks like right now and what it could like and look like in the future, is the privilege, the access to resources that some people have that others might not. And so, what that could look like, from a very literal sense, is just a couple of sticks and logs available to fuel, and support that alignment. Um, this could be an example of, and also the conditions around this person, right? The wind and the rain is making it such that it's going to be much harder for that person to protect and fan the flames. So this person might be in kind of, very base survival mode. If we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they might not have the privilege to be thinking about, oh, what brings me a sense of joy and meaning and self-actualization. They might just be trying to survive a violent, um, unsupportive town or neighborhood that they're living in. They might have limited access to healthy food and, you know, transportation, that can get them to and from a job that they would enjoy. So just these are just some examples, but there's a lot of others. And then on the other hand, we have, people who are experiencing more access to materials and live in environments that are in systems that are making it easier, to come by that alignment. And so this might look like, a nice big inventory of sticks and logs that are highly flammable, and just the right environmental conditions. And then, of course, recognizing that there's a whole world in between these two ends of the spectrum. So it's just important to notice that for both yourself and the clients that you're working with if you are a helping professional. All right. So, we have gone through most of these points here. You can see by now how many different implications and applications there are for this model. We're particularly excited to move into the teams and organizations space and, really taking a proactive, helping organizations take a proactive approach to preventing burnout within their teams. But first, we need to, our stance is that, it's so helpful and so important that we as OTs and just human beings learn how to live this model, figure out what alignment looks like to us, what it feels like, and look at our ecosystem so that we can live it and experience it before we lead it and teach it. So, if you are interested in joining us on a deeper dive of the burn-in model and want some guidance along the way, please join us for our all-in alignment journey. This is going to be, like I said earlier, a 6-week course that has a really strong community component and including 6 live weekly group calls with me and or Rhiannon and the rest of the people on this journey. We know that people who are, especially people who are in a state of burnout or heading in that direction, it's hard to kind of just pull up your bootstraps and like do a self-paced, uh, read a book about burnout or you know try the different strategies on your own. So this community environment and support is going to be magical. And we would love for you to join us on that journey.
Mhm. And on that note, like we'd love to invite anyone who is also still living and leading a beautiful, full life, and maybe you just feel like there is more to life and you're after more optimization. Because I know for me, I haven't experienced burnout in the sense of misalignment for a very long time. But I know that this is something that would help me move the needle. This journey is something that would help me get from where I am now to where I want to go because I'm looking at my life through the burn-in lens. I'm looking at my doing, my being, my belonging. I'm looking at my potential for becoming. And so I think, and this is something that we hope that you've picked up from our presentation here today is that the model isn't just for you if you're burnt out or you're burning out. It's for you also if you know there is more to your becoming and you're ready to take this reflective, introspective look at where you are now and take the bold, courageous, exciting, exhilarating action steps and really immerse in the doing. Be committed to yourself enough to do the doing to help you get to where you want to go. And we're here, we're cheerleaders, and we are so pumped. We are so excited. We have been all immersed in the burn-in model for yeah, 10 months plus now. And so we're ready to share it with you guys and join us on the journey if you're feeling called.
Absolutely. If you're watching this before August 5th, or before the end of August 5th Pacific time, then you are eligible for the early bird pricing still, and that will end starting on August 6th Pacific time. We start our journey in a week and a half. So, well, the week of August 11th, with our first live call being 14 August. So, yeah, please head on over to the website, take a look, see if it feels aligned to you, and if you're ready to take that step. And we will be here waiting.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. You're amazing. Go out. Now that you have learned more about the model, we want you to take it and use it and integrate it. Um, and we welcome you to do that. This is our invitation for you to use the model. But again, if you're wanting that integration, if you are really into this embodiment piece where you feel like you need to live it before you lead it, which is what we are all for, then yes, come join us for the guided 6-week journey.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.